So you're saying there's a chance. There is a chance for Kyle Busch. Hey, welcome back. It's another Kyle Busch video. And today, actually yesterday, we found out that there is a rumor that Kyle Busch may be going to Stewart Haas Racing after all. This was dismissed as a possibility pretty early on in the Kyle Busch saga, I guess we'll call it. The Kyle Busch 2023, will he, won't he be racing in the Cup Series next year saga. Because we've known for a while that Eric Almirola would unretire and take back the 10 car as to keep Smithfield on the car. Keep that focus on the Smithfield. But now, as we have discovered, or at least the collective NASCAR Information Center on social media has found out that a new option has emerged that could see Kyle Busch driving for Tony Stewart and Gene Haas next year in the NASCAR Cup Series. And yes, it does get complicated. We will talk about that and much more in this video. It is Brickyard week after all, and it's kind of all NASCAR here all the time. Of course, you will also see on this channel coverage of not only the IndyCar race that will be a doubleheader with the Xfinity race on Saturday, but you'll see coverage of the Pavement Midgets at IRP, as well as the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series as they kick off their playoffs at Indianapolis Raceway Park. So if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, be sure to do it because there's lots of racing coverage coming this week. Speaking of the Brickyard, here's one hell of a bombshell that left field doesn't even begin to describe this one, but here goes. Former Toro Rosso and Red Bull F1 driver Daniel Kvyat will drive for Hazeberg Motorsports at the Verizon 200, the NASCAR Cup Series race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Of all the driver announcements I've ever heard, this is certainly one of them. But of course, there has been a lot of Formula One influence all over the United States motorsports racing scene this year. And in fact, the Cup Series, well, you've already had a world champion in the Daytona 500, that was Jacques Villeneuve. But you also have a world champion that's going to race at Watkins Glen later this year with Kimi Räikkönen driving for the Project 91 effort from Trackhouse. So Kvyat, I think he'll probably do pretty well. Certainly, the next-gen car is a lot more like a European-style road racing car than any stock car has been in the past. And while Kvyat is definitely an open-wheel guy, that doesn't necessarily disqualify you from being fast in a stock car. I think, Tony Stewart is a great example of that. Of course, he came from dirt open wheel racing and then, of course, moved into Formula cars with the Indy 500 and the IRL. But, yeah, I think this is going to be pretty good. I mean, this is almost as left field as the Tarso Marquez announcement. Remember Tarso Marquez when he announced that he was going to race in the Brickyard weekend? What happened to Tarso Marquez? Is that still happening? But yeah, I don't know. If someone can tell me what happened to Tarso Marquez, that'd be great. But this is something that I'm probably not informing you about for the first time. I don't know if anybody's been talking about this. I assume they have. NASCAR took a win away from Denny Hamlin post-race at Pocono Raceway. This was the first time they had done it in like over 70 years. And certainly when NASCAR announced that they were going to tech the cars with more scrutiny and to the point where they would take a wins away if they found something that was egregious enough to do it, I think it was met with some skepticism because that typically has not been the NASCAR way of doing things. And yet, they have followed through and they have done it. And it may not be over at just taking a win away. And of course, as well, it wasn't just Denny Hamlin that was DQ'd, it was Kyle Busch who finished second for Joe Gibbs Racing. While I applaud the NASCAR consistency here, because they actually followed their own rules and penalized a strong top team, I also look at it and I say, I think this is going to get worse, potentially. If they're going to do this, they're probably going to drop the hammer. And what happens typically is that NASCAR releases additional penalties on Wednesday, which, if you're looking at your calendar and watching this on the day of release, that is tomorrow. So stay tuned, because there may be a big penalty coming for Joe Gibbs Racing at a time in which it really doesn't need it, because Kyle Busch is in big trouble. As you guys know, he is looking for a sponsor right now, looking for a ride for NASCAR in 2023. The Door Bumper Clear podcast, which is hosted by Freddie Kraft, in a lot of ways is a great source for insider information on NASCAR, had a very interesting possibility pop up about Kyle Busch. And it was that the option that Kyle Busch may have next year is that he could replace Cole Custer in the number 41 car for Stewart Haas Racing. Now, it's important to note that essentially the 41 car is all funded by Gene Haas, the co-owner of Stewart Haas Racing, as we all know. And because Gene Haas has a Formula One team, that means he's got plenty of money to burn. The interesting note from the podcast was that Freddie Kraft said that Gene Haas was at Pocono and apparently almost never attends NASCAR races. So he would have only been there for a very important reason, and that reason was trying to court Kyle Busch. Now, like I said in yesterday's video, Kyle Busch's current salary is around $14 million. If you've already been paying for the car, you would have to come up with $14 additional million. Now, obviously, Kyle Busch is going to be a lot more expensive than what they're currently paying Cole Custer. So that's going to be the hurdle, and it really has been the hurdle from day one for everybody who's trying to get Kyle Busch, is how do you pay the man? Now, Gene Haas, again, has plenty of money, and certainly he has had success with putting Busch brothers in the 41. You look at what Kurt Busch was able to do for that team, a win in the Daytona 500, many wins throughout the season or the series, really helped the competitiveness of the Stewart Haas Racing program when he got over there. I would hazard a guess that Kyle Busch would have a similar effect. And also, when you kind of think back to last year and Tony Stewart's attempts to get Kyle Larson only to be shot down by Ford, do you really want to miss another opportunity to get an elite level championship caliber driver? I would say no, you don't want to miss that opportunity. But one of the other interesting points, and it may or may not have something to do with where Kyle Busch is going next year, is that in the Door Bumper Clear podcast, they said that Dale Jr., meaning Junior Motorsports, Colleague Racing, and Denny Hamlin are all looking to buy an extra charter. So you've got two Chevy teams and a Toyota team looking to add to their rosters. Now, Dale Jr., don't think that Kyle Busch would drive for him. Maybe. It's not impossible, but I think it's unlikely. Colleague Racing probably just simply can't pay Kyle Busch. I'm sure they'd love to have him. And Denny Hamlin has the Toyota card in his pocket, but he may well just be expanding the team so that he can bring Tyler Reddick in and not have to cut Bubba Wallace or Kurt Busch. Now, Kurt Busch could retire, and Kyle could move into there with help from Toyota. There's no doubt about it. But is Toyota going to pay for Denny's charter? Because those are currently starting at $20 million, at least. And Denny already bought one last year for $13, and as if you watched our video with Adam Stern, he said that would be a bargain these days. So if Toyota wants to keep Kyle Busch, again, he's got two options with Toyota. It's 2311, or Toyota essentially pays out of pocket for the 18. Now, my buddy Race Day 2011, who's a former YouTuber, sent me an interesting text yesterday, which was that, what's a possibility that Kyle Busch could be sent to IMSA with the Lexus program? And I said, wait a second, that's a very interesting idea, because he did race at the Rolex for them, and it would keep him in the Toyota family if they wanted to take a year and try to find him a sponsor for 2024 in the Cup Series. So I asked around to some of my friends in the GT ranks, and I said, what would it take for a year for Lexus to put an extra car together for Kyle Busch? And the number was around $6 million. So if, let's say, for example, rather than buying a charter, if you think you can get Kyle Busch a sponsor to go either to 2311 to replace Kurt or come back to Joe Gibbs Racing, maybe if Martin Truex Jr. leaves, you stick him in IMSA for a year, and that's the most cost-effective way to do it, because rather than buy a charter for $20 million and then you still have to buy all the equipment, you just send him to IMSA with equipment you already have. He runs a year and comes back a better road racer. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know what you think and where you think Kyle Busch is going to be next year. Is it going to be the 41? Remember, we got a lot of NASCAR coverage still to come, and Brickyard, and IndyCar, and NASCAR Truck Series, and Midgets. All this stuff. Talk to you guys in the next video, and like Tony Stewart would want me to, I'm getting my ass to Kokomo.